Hello, Radiant One, and welcome to Spiritual Business with Maria Serafina, the show and podcast for soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneurs and Magdalene's Rising, ready to grow and expand from within and wanting to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Maria Serafina, and it is my deep honor, my great pleasure, and joy to share this episode with you. Before we jump into the beautiful guest episode I have for you today with the most radiant divine soul, just a quick note that the Golden Grid for the Magdalene Rising is opening its doors on June 21st, and our journey together begins on July 1st. The Golden Grid is for you who, as a Magdalene Rising, whether it be a grid keeper, anchor, or activator, wants to lift the veils. Not only to support you in remembering who you are in truth and allowing the deepest understanding of who you are and what you came here to be and do, but also for you to recognize it with every cell of your body, every fiber of your being, every aspect of your soul, and for you to merge your divine feminine and your divine masculine essences as well as their shadow aspects so that you may, through whom you have chosen to be in this lifetime, be part of the unveiling, awakening, transformation, and healing of all, lifting the frequency and vibration of our realm personally and collectively. If these words speak to your heart and to your soul, go to mariaserafina.com/TGG to find out more and join the waitlist. You can also find the link in the description. As always, I encourage you to listen with an open heart and an open mind and take only what serves you and leave the rest. I am not your guru, nor am I your teacher. Instead, let me serve you as your guide, your catalyst, and facilitator so that which you're here to birth might find its expression in this world the only way that it can, through you. Know that show notes, transcripts, and previous episodes can also be found on my website. Here is today's episode. We're giggling even before we have started. I have been crying tears of joy by connecting before we even met in person or online. Alan Sophia Rose, welcome to the Spiritual Business Show and Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you just shared that you're apparently elusive, so I'm like, who? This is like a who special thing. This is like your first appearance or like like a special appearance. Not that there's anything. Yeah, no, I don't know if it's special, but it's so wonderful to have you here. And would you start us off by telling us who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
I think I'll share. I made a joke with a friend the other day, and I think, and I said that to you as well. It's quite funny, so I think I'll just share that. So I am sort of. I like to say I'm a cosmic delivery girl, and to those who I don't mean this in any kind of religious connotations. I sort of has an angelic essence, and it's something that I'm only just kind of starting to sort of really share. I've been doing spiritual work for a little while, but I am just kind of been almost in covert operation. I suppose I was saying that you can think of me as just a veteran Sarah hanging around Earth, just waiting to awaken baby star seeds from among the muggles.
Yes.
I call myself a soul whisperer. I'm gifted with an inner stillness where I'm able to perceive people's karmic blueprint. How that translates in earthly terms is that there's really no chance of me not doing spiritual work, because I could be queuing in a grocery store and suddenly it hits me, and I just have to tap on someone's shoulder and start sprouting these things at them, and to varying degrees of entertainment. And so so nowadays what I do, and I'm also an astrologer. I like to think I'm trying to sort of bring spirituality into the modern age, where it's relevant to really harness, draw upon the poetic metaphors of ancient wisdoms,
Yes.
and to really bring it forth, and but not just to rehash them, to innovate, to evolve as we evolve as in humanity. So yeah, I guess that's what I do.
Yes. Just like no biggie. That's what you do. You said something like, hold on, I'm just taking notes here. Because you said the word rehashing, or you said not rehashing. And can you speak more to that? Because I know that I probably have an understanding of it in terms of, and I think it's a really valid point that we're not here to rehash, but we're here to evolve. Because there seems to be an old guard that's like, like, this is the way that you're supposed to do it, even though we're receiving as spiritual beings in human form. And when I say we, I don't mean just you and I, but I mean everyone, are always, but to varying degrees, like in terms of how much you're able to receive or listen or hear or see, and how you expand that. There's an important, would you speak more about the not rehashing but evolving part? Tell me more about that.
So I think it's quite relevant for this time, and probably in the last few years, especially, I would say probably the last decade or so, there's been a lot of awakening. A lot of people are starting to remember who they have been, where they've come from, and they've remembered their past selves in their past lives, in other lifetimes. And I think in the beginning, when we all start to get these downloads, is amazing, is fascinating, is fantastical, and the fact that we remember these lifetimes also means they were very significant. Are we allowed to swear here, by the way?
Yes, absolutely. You can swear all you want.
So some shit went down, and your soul remembers. And in the beginning, when we first remember, there's a tendency for us to, really hold on to it, and probably partly because, for a lot of us, we've been waiting for this for our entire life, going day in, day out, living the muggle's life, and the moment we think, oh my God, the magic in my dream is real. I have lived through this before. And a lot of these lineages, we've come from these, so-called golden ages, magic and ancient and technologies that are far more advanced than now, and also a sense of sacredness that we perhaps have lost touch with in our current times. And so what we're seeing is a resurgence of all of these lineages. Whatever they are, different people resonate with different bloodlines, different lineages and cultures. But I think we want to kind of like, it's good to kind of be nostalgic and really reconnect, especially when you remember this stuff. You're going to start reuniting with your soulmates. I've never seen so many soulmates in the same lifetime.
No.
We all come down here to party. We're at this pivotal point on Earth where we know, it's about to blow, and so we all came down for the party, and when you reunite with all these soulmates and you remember these past lineages, it's so intoxicating. And it's good to kind of bathe in it, to really draw back from it and really remember. But I think it's also very important, once we've kind of had a little bit of a welcome party, to start really sitting down and go, okay, what can we harness from the past? The good, the bad, and the ugly, because, we often in the community like to romanticize the past. Atlantis, Lemuria, and
yes,
and all these, different
yes,
amazing places that we've been to.
yes.
But just like our current times, these are all, human evolution.
Yes.
The human story hasn't changed all that much in all these eons. We just hope to gradually evolve from it. It wasn't, it wasn't just, paradise like you're on drugs. every day.
It's like everyone, we all want to like, and that's one of the things that I have been like integrating over the past, I want to say like 2-ish, 3-ish years, like is that we all want to remember like, being the priestesses and the goddesses and the oracles, and we don't want to remember being the abusers and the shitheads and the, fucktards, and now that we're swearing, we don't want to remember all of those things. And you, in my opinion, you have to integrate, like you said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You have to be to transmute it. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead. But I'm like, yes. Mm-hmm.
No, it is very, very valid. I deeply resonate with that, because I think, especially as women, and I say this with the utmost respect and reverence, as women, we have gone through a lot in the last few thousand years, and yes, of course, that sacred rage has to come out. Of course, that has to galvanize the wounded masculine and the patriarchy that is crumbling. Yes. However, I feel that we need to be a bit careful about not just swing the pendulum the other way, to swing to the other polarity, because once upon a time, and I think a lot of us probably don't even like to remember that bit yet, once upon a time the feminine was in power, and I would just slightly touch upon the fact that the men didn't have a very good time at once upon a time, and you wonder why they rose up, and just like how we're rising up now. But what we need to learn from our collective history is that revolution is supposed to galvanize what's not working. But after the revolution, and we rarely get this right, let's be honest, but hopefully we gradually evolve to do better, less bloody, is to bring balance. I would love for our future children, grandchildren to grow up, and feminism is not even a word anymore, because to them, they have grown up with equality. Yes. They haven't grown up to feel like they have to fight, they have to defend themselves against the other sex. It'll be amazing for that to happen. But in order for that to happen, there are lots of work that we still have to do. Yes. But I feel that is, for those of us who are on the front line, it's important to start to cultivate that sense of compassion and remember that, we're on this journey, we're here to evolve, and to not just get fixated on this crusade, because it is a crusade, and to also not just be too fixated on bringing the goddess back and putting her on the pedestal. And I would love to see the world, and this is why I'm here, right? And to at this moment of awakening, we're not just having the rise of the feminine. What we are receiving from the cosmos is actually this high vibration, but it comes in twin rays, which the masculine and the feminine integrating. In fact, there's actually a certain very ancient wisdom from the Thai tradition, in Thailand, where they believe that the androgyny is actually the cosmic perfection, when you're able to integrate both masculine and feminine. Yes. And so I think, it's important that we remember, yes, history and cycles repeat, but we don't have to react the same way every time. No. It keeps repeating until we've learned the fucking lesson. And so now we have to, I am hopeful. I know the world looks messy right now, but I'm hopeful that we are evolving. We're going through a dark night of the soul collectively because of the pandemic, and it's much needed. With mass awakening, there's also always going to be mass exit. And I just want to use this opportunity of talking to you, and it's going to go on air, to just offer a little bit of solace to those who have lost loved ones, or are in a very dark space about losing loved ones. With mass awakening, there's always going to be mass exit. The souls that are exiting now, you can think of it as working different work shifts. Our souls come and incarnate, and we sign up to do certain things. The souls that are exiting, they've done their shift. We have to let them go. They will probably come right back if they choose to. But they've done their work. They paved the way for us to live in this time. And we are the souls who remains. We are the torch has been passed to us. Is our shift now. Yes. And also I think it's important to remember the quality of life is more important than the prolonging of life, and the souls that are leaving, because the meat suit, I like to say, have been kind of created to fit the frequency before this time. And so as the frequency changes, the bodies can't actually integrate this. So they have to, it's going to be so uncomfortable for the souls, and it's much better, much kinder for them to just jet out of these meat suits. They can come right back in new meat suits that are kind of souped up and upgraded to suit this frequency. And there's also I received a vision in meditation last week about how, we like to think that when loved ones passed on, we pray to them, we ask them to watch over us because we see them as our ancestors. Yes. But have we considered the idea that our loved ones that have passed on, they've passed on because they're needed in the future, and so now we have become their ancestors, and maybe they are looking to us to watch over them now. We have to pray for them, not pray to them.
That's like mind-blowing. Sorry, I'm like, ooh, I'm just feeling into that, because yes, absolutely. That is, sorry, that's like mind-blowing. Even though you told me before, but it's like now that I'm sitting with it, it's like, yes. And I guess I'm also sensing what I'm probably also sensing is that this part of our transmission together will have other people be like, there will be light bulbs going off like everywhere. They'll be like, boop, 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 boop.
Growing light bulbs is what I do best.
One of the things you mentioned was you mentioned how there was there's a collective lesson to be learned, or you mentioned how about the collective and lessons to be learned, and I think that goes both for the collective but also for the individual. So it's micro and macro at the same time. So we as a collective have lessons to learn, and then we also as an individual have lessons to learn. So it's like infinite. It's like in sync with what our personal lessons are is also in sync with the universe as well, and having come back. I'm wondering, how did you get started, like in terms of having a spiritual business, being, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like being spiritual, because it's not, I know it's not like a switch that you turn on. For me, it's been an unveiling, or it's been a discovery in terms of realizing who I am, or being reminded of who I am. But how did you get started? I know that you did some work before you stepped into this work, but how did you get started with your spiritual business?
So, in fact, it's actually only very recently that I recorded a little podcast. In one of the episodes that I talked about, the spiritual closet unfolds like an onion. Even for you and me now, at this stage where we're fully in, there's still going to be loads of layers that's still unfolding. And for me, most recently, the layer that unfolded for me is to own up, because I feel like I've just, I quite enjoy just masquerading, as an oracle. And recently I owned up in my podcast that actually I have an angelic essence, and and the healing that I transmit, they're actually angelic light codes. And the reason I call myself Cosmic Delivery Girl is actually because angels are messengers. And that was quite vulnerable for me too. But you see, and we are people who help other people awaken and open up their spiritual closets, right? But it really unfolds in layers. There's always more. The soul, I like to refer to the soul flower, this celestial rose that endlessly unfolds with endless petals, and we each still going through on different parts of our journey. And for me, I'm someone who perhaps slightly unusual in that when I was very, very young, I used to have it's better than Netflix, really. I used to have these recurring dreams that would go one episode after another, just telling me what I used to be. And I've always kind of had this sort of inkling, coming to this world, I sort of probably had a little bit more remembrance than a lot of other people, perhaps. But as a child, I think I can say for most of us that you don't necessarily have the nurturance that you need around you for that particular part of you. And so things are going to happen that you can't explain, that might even scare you a little bit. And so I, for a time, actually started shutting it down. I went into science. I'm half a scientist, but ironically, I only went into physics because of these recurring dreams. Because I remember there was this science teacher who just she was just exasperated with me. I was in primary school, and I used to go up to her and said, "Oh my God, well, have you heard about superconductor? There's things that can elevate off the ground, and there's me, yay high, and I shouldn't know these things." And I used to have to sneak into the adult library. I was at this library, and there was it was divided into children's and adult sections, and they wouldn't let children in. So I used to do my best to sneak in just so I could find these books. And so I seem to have kind of this inkling that no, and I remember kind of having a little frustrated moment in science class when people talk about power station, how energy is harnessed. And I remember as a kid just going, no, you're getting it all wrong. And fossil fuel stations, you're lucky if you get about 30% efficiency. Sorry, I know that sounds very geeky. If I'm not so pretty, I'll never get laid, but
love it. You're just like,
I was like, what?
Go ahead.
I said, well, energy is all around us. What if you can just harness it, have a way to manipulate? And I was describing this little watch thing, a bit like an Apple Watch, that you can use it to harness energy around you, and there's no blowing things up, and it's all quite gentle, and it doesn't hurt anything, and it's all very self-sufficient. And I can't remember if I got punished for that. I might have. So I think the teacher just thought I was having one of my moments. And so, all that kind of went on. And as I grew older, I started having more, actually a surprising amount of spiritual people around me. But part of the spiritual closet is, I didn't really want to be a part of it because, New Age shop, you get that, especially in England.
Yes.
Go to a New Age shop and the incense is choking you, and there's loads of purple velvet around.
Yes.
And it didn't quite chime with my fashion sense.
Yes, it's very it's very, actually something that I learned this week, was it this week or it was probably last week, was the term, it's very woo-woo, like it's very spirit, like very woo, and very often I've never understood why that has been used very often used as a derogatory term. It's very like, oh, you're so woo, like that's been like. And what I found out this week, someone told me, I'll leave a link in the show notes for this. I think it's a Chinese American who shared how there is a Chinese word that means shaman or healer, and the word is pronounced woo. So now I'm like now I'm like uncovering in terms of that. I'm like, okay, so hold on. So has that been used? Like, why are we then saying woo woo, using it to talk? I'm going on to a whole tangent, but it's like, it's very interesting to understand the origin of things, for me at least. And so I'm wondering about the term like woo, if we're using, because I've never, for me, like once I quote unquote came out, I've owned my woo-ness. I'm proud of my woo-ness. And yes, I'm also not, I have become more gentle and softer. And I may wear purple as well. I don't have that. I don't have anything against it anymore. And I also understand that the people that came before us lived in a very different time, and so that was the way that they expressed it. And one of the things that I think in terms of what we're doing is that hopefully those of us who are awakening today, who are doing the work today, will create better spaces for children to grow up, so that when they do have these dreams, and when they are open, when they're born open, like you obviously were, that they're then in a space where that is revered and supported and nourished and guided, rather than being, you know, oh, you're so imaginative and you're like you're off on a tangent. It's more like, does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's how I see that. That's one of the big things of the work that I do, even though it's not, I don't work directly with children, is that creating those or helping those parents be in that space of reception of that, because it just again it just continues, not the cycle, but it just expands the love that we are in truth. And you mentioned the angelic essence, and I can like literally right now I can see, like, I don't know, I can see like chimes around your face, and it's like, so I totally get the angelic presence. Um and I'm wondering, was there a decision that made you like, okay, now is the time, like now it's time for me to step into that, to own that I am that? Because it's also interesting how I remember this with quote unquote the Magdalene, um, who's one of my guides, is like the first time I shared about that, I was very careful because I don't want to be like I don't pretend to be speaking on behalf of her. I don't pretend to be speaking on anyone, but there's things that come through me, and I'm not a channel per se in that sense. But it's interesting how we seem to, I don't know if it's protection, but it's more like we don't want to be perceived as someone who's taking on that, even though it's obvious that you have that angelic essence. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
No,
like,
you're making perfect
go ahead.
sense. I think probably a part of it, I remember in one of your recent podcasts, you talked about, you brought up the fact that a lot of us were persecuted in the past
Yes.
for who we were,
Yeah.
and there's definitely a side of that. You know, I think frankly, this whole awakening part of it is us having to deal with the PTSD from all the past lives.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And the grief. You know, I see the spiritual community as almost going through stages of grief. You know, earlier when I said, you know, people get fixated on only the good stuff,
Yes.
that's actually a stage of grief.
Yeah.
Denial is a stage of grief, and then there's
Mhm.
also anger that will come through, and eventually we come to acceptance. That's how
Yeah.
grief works. But we have to. But by, you know, I guess a lot of us when we first awaken, is already such a big energetic load to remember who
Yeah.
we were, and then we had to anchor that first before we remember. I mean, geez, you know, the shit that went down. um, and I certainly went through that. You know, in the I've gone. I suppose, you know, I had a bit of a head start because it started when I was just, you know, pretty much a toddler,
Yeah.
and so I've kind of probably come into a human adulthood,
Yes.
probably already being a little bit jaded,
Yes.
and kind of seeing other people going through it, and I start to see that I should say, you know, to answer your question before, I in my earthly endeavors, I am quite a creative person, so I'm a creative director. I write a lot, and I, you know, do you know what creative directors do, and I like to think I boss people around really nicely. Buy them pizza and bake them brownies and stuff, but but I found that quite often, and I worked in the spa and wellness industry. Quite often, I have to go and train people, or, you know, just go and talk to people. And but more often than not, it would turn into these collective workshop, this counseling session. I'm there, you know, instead of doing what I'm supposed to do for my job, I'm there just counseling everybody. And having all these intuitive messages that come through, and that's partly why I call myself Cosmic Delivery Girl. And it's like, you know, that switch, you know, I could turn it off if I really have to, but I generally don't, because, you know, that's what I came here for, and whatever needs to come out of me needs to come out. It's part of being of service. And so gradually, you know, I have some, you know, really dear friends around me who are already, you know, very deep in the spiritual space, and they do it for a living. And I've always thought, and they've all. And the funny thing was, I was really happy to be behind the scene to support them, you know, because I was also very spiritual, but I wanted to be like the behind the scene oracle for them. You know, any messages that came through, I would just talk to my sisters and brothers about it. and I thought, well, God, going on the front line is not for me. I'm not really a people person, and in astrology, I've got my sun and moon in my 12th house, which means I'm just constantly not even on Earth. But eventually, I come through and I started sort of doing this, and then more and more people kind of say, well, you should do this. And I started to feel actually more of an urge. And I'll meditate, and I kept getting this vision. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I had a whole week of, that week was just completely written off. I wasn't here. I'll be in the shower and these things would come through me. And I was shown 7 rays of light of, these rainbow starlights, really, really beautiful. And they explained to me that, you are here to cater for these 7 lights. Because when these 7 lights converge, that's what you get. You get the white light, and that's from source. But it gets split like like going through a prism of incarnation, if you like, depending on the vibration density of whatever realm you're in. Because I like to say, in the tapestry of incarnation is like a kaleidoscope. And the divine wanted to experience itself infinitely, and therefore each of you and each of us are a unique facet within this kaleidoscope. And as a soul whisperer, and yourself as well, and many others like workers, we're blessed with a certain ability in our own ways to be able to tap into this kaleidoscope to help other people see themselves, and in turn that helps the divine see itself. I think the divine is unfathomable, whatever you call it, God, source, divine, universe. But I like the idea of it. Just actually, it's got to find its own entertainment, right?
Yeah, it's the continuous expansion. I call it the continuous expansion of love. It's you can't hold it back. It continues to just expand and expand and expand. And I love how. Because I think that a lot of people will recognize this in themselves, is that I'm fine, because I was there. I was there. I'm fine to be behind the scenes. I don't want to be in the forefront. I don't like. And then the Magdalene Voices, my other podcast, was seated, and it was like, when I first realized I was supposed to do that, I was like, what? And I had been given all of the tools, all the technical skills, everything to literally breathe life into it. So I understood at some point. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then when this podcast was born, because apparently one podcast is not enough, you have to have 2. It's like,
go home.
It's like, it's like when that was also born out of, it's never truly, I understand that I'm the face of it, and I understand that somehow that like is what draws people in. But for me, it's never been about me. It's been about service. It's about being servant. It's about me surrendering into, okay, I will do this because that's what I'm here to do. And then I'm not going to lie, I do find, I get to sit with incredible people like you and everyone else. It's like, oh yes. And then also, because I know that through the work that I do, I won't be able to reach or work with everyone. So I want the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience, the gnosis, all of that. I want that still to be available to people who might use it for themselves, who I might never meet or see or hear from or anything. And in order for me to do that, we, you, I, and those of who are listening, we have to show up. We have to stop being, behind the scenes and step into the light, I suppose, embracing both the darkness and the light. And does that make sense?
I just want to say that earlier when you said you're not necessarily a channel for the Magdalene Voices, what I really felt is that you're a gatekeeper. Yes. And there are many of us that have been stationed in different parts of the world, and some of us, we don't quite know how we got here, but here we are. And you are a gatekeeper, and that's partly what a priestess would do, to pass on knowledge. And you're not necessarily the one who kind of go into the operating table, so to speak, but you're the one that, souls like you keep the lineage alive.
Yes.
And I just see this really strongly in my head. I'm just seeing, this gate, and that's what you are, and you've probably been doing it for a very long time to keep it going. Wisdom keepers is the word that comes to mind, and that's not easy. Being a wisdom keeper, and that kind of chimes with wanting to be behind the scene, because wisdom keepers, anyone who will want to persecute you, if they're smart about it, don't just go kill the priestesses, kill the one who holds the key to to the vault, and throw away the key.
Yes. That is so, that's like that. Okay. So recently, one of the things that I've just within the past 2 to 3 weeks, one of the things that I've been integrating when I was in Egypt of last year. I was in Egypt, and I know that I received during that trip, I know that I received things, but they weren't implemented or integrated. And over the past, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, there's been some portals that has been opened for me, like in the top from my heart and going up. There's portals that's been opened. Backside of my heart has been opened. There's a disc that has been installed and has been integrated into my DNA and my cells. So it's spot on that you say that. And also, again, while I understand that I may quote unquote be the face of it, and I think maybe what you're saying is why I'm so adamant about it not necessarily being about the bloodlines. It's like we're focusing so much on the external appearances and the manifestations of things, not the internal things, and not the lessons that are. And I can literally hear people who are listening to this. I can hear them having like light bulb. I can just hear them having revelations in terms of their own experiences and their own paths and their own purposes, which is literally why I do this, because I want to support the awakening. I'm not responsible for the awakening, but I am a part of supporting the awakening, the healing, the transformation, and the transmutation of the realms.
I could just see you with a fairy wand going around bopping people on the head. Nikki.
Yeah, I do go off on sometimes I do, and I do that in the podcast. I do go off on some rants where I'm just like, what would you say has been your biggest challenges or struggles in terms of having a spiritual business in a 3D world, while being, as you say, like you were very like etheric, angelic, and like, because I know that for a lot of people, and I'm going to share this in an episode at some point, but the integration of the soul, I think that for a lot of light workers, or whatever we want to call it, there's that because we understand what we are in truth. At first, there's this tendency to be like, we don't want, like, why would I want to be in this body on this physical plane when I understand the ethers and where it can be? Not, again, like you said, like not understanding that we're here for a reason, and you have to inhabit this suit in order to be able to channel through you the divine light, the source, to be part of that. So what would you say has been your biggest challenges or even struggles in terms of having a spiritual business in this world?
I would say probably the biggest struggle is to really uphold my integrity. Now I come from the secular. My career was in.
You just go straight in. It's like my integrity. Like you're not like, yes. Ooh, okay. Integrity. Yes.
Is because especially since I came from the secular world and the skill sets that I were given, now it all makes sense why I took on that career. I'm sort of half an artist, half a scientist. And in my line of work, I was creative director. I also would do formulation. I develop recipes, whether it's food or cosmetic products for people, and that's why I was in the luxury spa world and stuff like that. And as a creative director, I do I do branding consultancy. I still do, but now I gear it towards spiritual people, and I call it branding alchemy.
Yes.
With all these skill sets, I now understand that I was meant to hone those skills in order to use it for this. But for a good while, I felt so iffy about using all those skills that I know I have, and those is to help me get out there to do the marketing, to start to do the marketing, to let people know that this is what I do, this is what I offer, because there's a sense, and I also come to see it as actually it's a very wounded conditioning to keep, in the past few thousand years, to really keep those of us who are in this kind of service really keep us down by instilling this belief that you mustn't let your ego take over. If you get out there and show yourself, you be egocentric, or and also these other very toxic belief that you mustn't make any money, you mustn't have any resources, but if you think about how without resources, we do live in an incarnate world. Without material resources, a roof over our head, and this kind of basic comfort of our well-being, we simply are not able to show up. and a lot of is something that probably is more prevalent in the previous generation. But for the longest time, we've been conditioned to believe that we have to give up everything in order to walk this path. And it started really sacred at first, but this is where it trips you up. This false light in the spiritual world, in the spiritual lineage, or in modern times, we might call it virtue signaling. And it seems really sacred, but when you really
sacrifice.
Yeah, this whole sacrifice.
Yes.
But there's a difference between meaningful sacrifice and meaningless martyrdom.
Yes.
And that martyrdom is just in a roundabout way, actually feeding your own ego to say, well, I'm being very virtuous. I'm willingly suffering for this. But actually, there's no point in that suffering, because it's actually killing your work. You're not able to make ends meet, and then you're just worrying so much about the other stuff that you're not able to actually focus on shining your light as much as possible. And
for me, so in terms of integrity, I think that that's actually where we as a spiritual community is right now, in terms of marketing, in terms of quote unquote selling, in terms of our practices, the way that I see it. And it's like, if I start, I'm like the stunted kid right now, because I'm like, yes, because what I see is that so many people have woken up, and we're creating these beautiful, magnificent businesses from our hearts. And we've been taught all of these different marketing tools and skills that are all based in the old paradigm, that are fear-based. And we don't, because for me, this was about, I would say 4 years now. Woo! Time flies. It's now 4 years ago when I had my quote unquote latest dark night of the soul. And what had happened was, I was receiving the gnosis. I understood that I like space of love. Love is who I am. Love is what I am, like what I want to share and all that. What I also saw was everything that I was doing, my being was based in love, but everything that I was doing was not based in love. And so I decided to stop doing, which is not something I can recommend if you have a business, because it's not very productive and it's not very, but I knew that for my integrity, for the sake of my integrity, I had to stop doing, because it was not based in love. And it wasn't until the moment when I realized how to shift it and began to tweak it and to work it, because it's not about, abandoning principles, or not principles. It's about infusing them with love. It's about making sure that when you promote or when you sell from a space of love, and not from a space of pushing and forcing and coercing, because that to me is part of the shadow realm. Both the shadow masculine and the shadow feminine is the manipulation and the lying and the jealousy and all that. And so it's about, and that lot goes. And so actually I see a lot of people, or not see, but it's more like a sense that there's a lot of people who are really, really powerful healers and have beautiful offerings. But in terms of the way that they're delivering and selling their things, they're out of integrity and out of alignment. And that's not to say that that will continue. I think that that is shifting, because I think that we have that sense of, they know that it's off. They just don't know yet how to change it. And I know it's possible. Sorry, I just like rambled.
No, I feel like this is something that is very important that we talk about this time. And in fact, a few days ago, I just had this feeling that we'll end up talking about, I felt that I have to tell you about the Gemini North Node.
Yes, go ahead.
So in astrology, we have this, astrology is very poetic. We have these things among the planets and the stars, where these things called North Node and the South Node. Now, these are not actually real planets. They are invisible points on the ecliptic. And so on the celestial plane is actually also using astronomy and science as well, but it's how the perspective of us looking on Earth at the sky, and from our perspective on Earth, how the sun and the moon sort of travel. I'm sorry, I feel like my
Your cats
are getting quite kinky, so don't mind that. A bit of side entertainment.
They just want to join. That's okay.
And so the North Node and the South Node are two intersections between the path where the path of the sun, the perceived path of the sun, meets the perceived path of the moon in the sky, from our perspective on Earth. And those 2 points have always been revered for thousands of years as where our karma and destiny are stored. And so the North Node is known as the destiny point. Is the North Node holds quality that we have not yet gained, and the South Node holds our karma, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So all the things that you've mastered before, as well as all the things that you might have been a bit boo-boo about. And because it's therefore, we tend to gravitate towards the South Node in life, especially early in life, depending on when your awakening is, but usually, up until probably your first Saturn return, which is about the age of 28 to 30, we tend to draw quite heavily upon the South Node, because these are things that we've done before, we know where it's nature. But the funny thing with the South Node and the North Node is that the South Node, in Western astrology, people is quite sensational. People like to say, well, South Node is really bad, North Node is really good. I like to kind of take a more relaxed approach to these things. And basically, you can think of the South Node like the mother bird. You're happy like a baby bird in your nest, and the mother bird is going to kick your ass to kick you out of your nest. And so the challenges that you tend to face in life are related to your South Node, and it'll force you to fly over to your North Node to go on those adventures and missions to attain the next kind of stripe for your soul. Now, when you're born, you have your personal North and South Node, just like you have your personal stars. But the North and South Node, we also have the collective North and South Node, because the North and South Node, just like all the other stars, move around. Every 18 months, they shift into a new sign within the zodiac wheel. And right now, as of May, we've just shifted into Gemini and Sagittarius. Now, South Node in Sagittarius, I'm sure people will be moaning about it for the next 2 years. Sagittarius is the philosopher and also the adventurer, the traveler. It rules long distance travel. When you have the South Node there, one of the challenges you face, along with Saturn being Aquarius, which rules freedom, and Saturn restricts you, but the South Node in Sagittarius, you can forget about long-term travel for a little bit, for most people, which is not what anyone wants to hear. But the North Node in Gemini, I feel, I really feel into what you said just now about how, people, there's this difficulty to run our spiritual businesses with integrity, to serve, to try to get out there, but without selling out. And I feel that this Gemini North Node is actually really going to help us unfold that next layer of healing. Because Gemini is all about collaborations and connections, and the sisterhood that we share here, and my little personal tribe that I have. I'm very lucky to have very dear friends who support me a lot. And one of them, in fact, Danielle Noel,
Yes.
I mentioned her that, oh, I'm going on Maria's podcast. So she said, oh my God, Maria is amazing. I hope you have a good time. And you know, she's one of the.
You can't see it right now, but I'm surrounded by her prints, and I have. Hold on, let me show you. I did bring your.
Oh my God, that's
your alter ego. This is how we first met. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, I will share an image of this in the show notes. But Awen was or is the high priest, and now I'm getting emotional. For some reason, I'm getting emotional. But you're the high priestess in my favorite deck, the Moonchild Tarot by Danielle. Sorry. Yeah.
You know, when Danielle made that card, because in this life I'm quite soft-spoken, and I come across quite watery. There's a wildfire inside, but I come across quite watery nonetheless. And when she showed me the card for High Priestess, and I said, "Wow, I look quite badass." I don't necessarily feel that stern, because that looks quite stern.
Yes.
And she said, "Babes, that's how I'll always remember you."
Yes. This is like when we started, when you talked about, like, you know, you being soft-spoken and elusive. Like, I hear you, and I fully agree. This is how I see you. Like, this is like, I don't see you as stern. I see you as powerful and just like owning this space and being like, yes, this is who I like. That's what I see in this, and that's what I see in you. So it's like, yeah,
I was definitely a warrior priestess.
Preach it. Preach it. So what was I saying? Yeah. So in terms of the integrity, I think that, and I think that's one of the things in terms of, because one of the recent episodes I had as well was about the myths about having a spiritual business, and how it's like supposed to be like soft and not serious and all these things. And what I know to be true is that for me, and for those that I know and those that I work with, is that it is one of the most powerful tools in your personal development if you choose to use it as that, because it will literally bring up everything, including your integrity. And so I'm just saying this, I'm not shaming people who are still in that space. I understand. I just want them to know, and you to know, not you, but like also to me, I guess, like, there is another way to do this. There is, and it is our path to do that, because I also think that with the awakening, like you said, that's been going on for quite a while now, people know when things are off. People understand when things are being stuffed down their throats. People understand. Like, just recently I have this often, but I had a client who, again, when I do I do one-on-one work as well, but when I have my quote unquote discovery sessions, those are real sessions. It's not like I'm not there to sell. Like, it's a real session. They send an application, they show up, we do the work. And I had someone who was telling me how she had surveyed a lot of people before she came to me. And I was the only person who had not at some point tried to convince her that she needed me in order to do whatever it was that she wanted to do. And I was like, to me, it's, I don't want to say mind blowing. It just shows that we have a way to go still, that we're here to sell, not serve. And, you know, it is about dissolving whatever comes up for us as we do that. Does that make sense?
Actually, it makes total sense. And I really feel into that, because I actually say on my own website that I'm not here to fix you. You already have everything you need. You can think of me as your manifesting companion with this rainbow pom-pom just cheering you on.
Exactly.
and I think one of the ways for me personally, to practice integrity is to remember to respect other people's free will.
Oh, yes.
And free will is something that I kind of perhaps partly because of my lineage. You know, I come from a lineage where free will is a very important thing. I understand that as a very important gift, and so in order, when you want to share something with someone that you think might be helpful, it's important to just remember they have free will over this. Whatever they want to do, whatever they decide, is not up to you, it's up to them, not up to me. And so I just try to remember that, you know, I can offer it to them on a plate. They don't have to eat it.
Yes.
And it's important to not make them eat it.
Yes. Yes. And also letting go of the outcome. Because I know, like, for example, with like family can be, my family is not as spiritual AF as I am. And there was a time in the beginning of my journey where I was like wanting to share and wanting to support and wanting to help and wanting to fix and wanting to need it. But there's a difference between, like, so that was not necessarily their need. It was my need to be able to, I wanted to fix them. And I then had to look at myself in terms of that. And also, like you say, like, I have this and you can take it if you want to and use it if you want to or not. Like, oh my God, we have to, like, you have to repeat that. We'll have to blast that sentence. Like, respect people enough to have them know that they have their own free will. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's just like, that's like just the dismantling of patriarchy or like old paradigm. Like, you just did that with one sentence. It's like, it's like, have the respect.
Yeah, that's not me. Just what I upstairs. I'm just a mouthpiece, and I sometimes like to say, because sometimes like some quite fierce things come out. I was just like,
yes.
Don't shoot messenger.
Yes. Yes.
But yes, free will is so important, and I think again going back to the North and South node.
Yes.
Now Sagittarius, because so if you think about Gemini, is quite friendly and it rules siblings and neighbors and local community.
Yeah.
And Sagittarius is more kind of Jesus. Sagittarius kind of is. I'm so sorry that my phone is beeping and I can't turn it off because it's on the laptop.
Don't worry.
And Sagittarius is basically, preaching. That would be Jesus preaching to a whole town. Yes. And that's why Sagittarius also rules higher education. We're probably going to see fewer university admissions over the next couple of years, because that kind of higher education and that kind of more expensive, where you kind of talking to a big bunch of people, is not going to be as supported. Whereas the more kind of forming more intimate community, yes, vibing with the Gemini and getting kind of chatty like we do, yes, is going to be, but that is actually going to help us cultivate that integrity, because it's so easy doing this line of work, as whatever you identify with, whether you identify with a priestess, a coach, a teacher, to kind of just preach, it's kind of not actually, you get the message out there, but then not actually engage with it, with the people who receive it. And so is something that I think over the next 18 months or so, probably a couple of years, we will really cultivate. And actually the South Node challenges, the mother bird is curbing our freedom. We're not as able to travel far and wide, so we have to focus on what's in front of us. Yes. And it doesn't just manifest as, I now have to just talk to my physical neighbors, although that's a nice thing, but also, increasingly we're going online to have community. Yes. And so even this is kind of actually for Gemini, we're chatting, we're talking heads, but it's more intimate. It's not just a webinar for thousands of people to attend. No. It's more having little chats. And you've seen a couple of days ago that my friend Heidi, who's a Vedic astrologer, we've started doing this thing, and that we're going to actually do readings together. I'm a Western astrologer, she's a Vedic. And again, that's one of the polarities in spiritual community. Vedic and Western astrologers, they don't tend to like each other. And there's a lot of arguing the toss about which is more accurate. But really, these are all just facets of the same diamonds. Yes. And if we can integrate and evolve on them, then we have really a whole picture. Yes. And this kind of community, and I think that will also help those of us who are in the kind of on the front line in these kind of teaching posts, so to speak, to help us to get more comfortable with the integrity of the free will, because we're having to get off our high horses to come down and kind of mingle and so I just feel like that's, whoever is listening, I hope that message kind of would help them.
And what you're like, one of the core things about what you're saying as well is also for me the understanding that I am not less or more because there is another coach, or because there is another catalyst, or because there is another therapist, or because there is another reader, or because there is another yoga teacher, or because there is another accountant, or because it's the I can it's the for me, it's like the more of us that are doing the work in whatever expression your soul is in this lifetime, the better it is for the whole. That's how I see it. So I will promote other quote unquote coaches or people who have similar offerings, because it's like, I understand the value that they bring, and not everyone will want to purchase from me or work for me. They may want to follow me, but they may be there for me to be showing them something else. It's like to just let go of that. Yeah. Aaron, we can go on and on and on and on. Is there any last thing that you feel that you haven't said? Are we complete? Is this transmission full? Or what, where are you at?
Well, this is your party. I'm just a guest, so I'm happy to flow with whatever you feel resonant. Is there anything that you feel that we should bring up? And
no, I feel like you have blown our minds several times, and you flow like still water. You there's a strength and a power in that still water and that angelic presence. And I'm sure that this transmission will literally be mind-blowing for a lot of people and revelatory for a lot of people, and they will receive the messages and the medicine that they're supposed to receive through this. So I just want to say a big, massive thank you for having joined me in Sacred Conversation, and for sharing your wisdom, for having gone through the things that you have gone through in your life, and for being who you are in this very moment. Thank you.
Thank you for being so kind. And in turn, I'm very grateful that we get to share this sacred space. I'm very honored to be invited to your podcast, because it is a really bloody amazing podcast. And you have such a, I feel very nourished by this, this session too. Like I said, I don't very often show my face, and I'm vibing with this Gemini North Node thing, and it is kicking my ass basically, and it's telling me that, well, get out of your cave. And so I'm getting out of my cave.
You're out.
Yeah, I'm getting kicked out by the Divine Mother, perhaps, and it's this is such a it's a beautiful opening for me as well. Whether it's communing with fellow colleagues like you and soul sisters, or whether it's with clients, I always say to my clients, I learn a lot with them, because usually, I'm just utterly humbled by the people, the amazing souls who come to me, and they tell me they're going to do this, and all this humanitarian work. And really, the part I play is very small. If all I do is to get our little fairy one and go, oh, hey, over there, your switch is over there. Yeah. And all I do is to help them find a switch. I don't even flick it. And then once they turn that light on, my goodness, they are such divine fierce forces in this world. And so I'm very grateful that this line of work does come with its challenges, but everything does, right? And I'm very grateful that now I get to hang out with you guys, and it is fun. And I can even swear on your podcast. That's great. I like my clients, especially if they are kind of more American, because I'm more more European. You're Danish. We kind of fuck like we mean to, and the Americans would just be they kind of I could almost feel them blush. I said, I'm sorry, I do swear like a sailor, but not sorry.
Not sorry. Yeah. My gratitude is infinite. So just thank you, Arden.
Thank you so much for having me.
Radiant One, I hope today's episode served you well. For all the deeds and the details, click the link in the description. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with the world so that the love shared within this episode through our connection may ripple further out into the world. I love you. God bless.